Kanye is ready for his big comeback with his new album, Bully. But is the music industry ready for it? I'm going to break down everything we know about this new album, including the new artwork that he just debuted, and the $1,000,000 question: can Kanye ever really be canceled? Let's get into it. We finally have the new album artwork for Kanye's forthcoming record. It's called Bully, and it's from Daidō Moriyama. I hope that I said that right. But he's a very established Japanese photographer. He's known for his black and white imagery, street photography. And one thing about Kanye, his album covers have been literal pieces of art. He always works with different artists, and every time he's in this sort of new era, aesthetically and sonically, I think his album art has always really reflected that. So if we're going to play sort of like armchair psychiatrist, I'm looking at the artwork. It looks like a little kid sort of, gritting his teeth. And I think Kanye just was like titanium or something in his teeth. So I can't tell, is this kid the bully or is this kid being bullied? And that's a theme I want to break down later in this video. But I think it is really eye-catching imagery. If I walk by this, I wouldn't immediately say, oh, that's a Kanye West album, but it is something unique. It is something that kind of makes you stop for a minute and at least take a closer look. And that's something Kanye has always done a good job of, very much being mindful of aesthetics and design. Those things are important to him as an artist, as a fashion designer. Those are just things that are always top of mind for him. It's funny. There was a time a Kanye announcement was breaking news. Everything would stop. It was considered a pop culture milestone. It was something monumental. Now I feel he's constantly doing stuff, but it's in sort of my periphery. I'm cognizant of it, but I don't know how much I really care, to be honest with you. And I say this as a day one fan. I don't know when this happened. I think probably the last couple years, especially through his falling out with Adidas and that very strange political run that he was trying to go for, I feel like he just became known for everything but music, everything but art. And at some point, the controversy just started to feel draining. Okay, enough, Mr. West, enough for today. And I just started tuning out what Kanye was doing. Let me know if any of you feel that way in the comments. Is it just me, or has Kanye become known for everything but music? And as a day one fan, I just want him to go, not just back to the old Kanye, just give me some records. That's my hope for this project Bully, that we get great records on the rapping front, definitely on the producing front. That's what would excite me more than just sort of the public spectacle of it all. The headlines, the controversy. Similar to Trump, I'm just kind of tired and exhausted. And can we just go back to a place of fun and calm? That's how I feel personally. We don't have a release date for Bully, but Kanye's been spending a lot of time in Japan. There's been a lot of speculation, both in the media and from insiders, that what Kanye's trying to do is a full personal rebrand. Even he knows that his goodwill in America isn't that great. He's always going to have his day one loyalists, but a lot of sort of the public goodwill that he's garnered over the years has understandably dissipated. And that's because of the things he said, the moves that he's chose to make. So this is him going overseas and trying to do a full makeover, come back as a new person, new look, new sound, new attitude. And maybe that's what this Bully album does represent. It doesn't surprise me that he chose to have artwork that's shot by a Japanese photographer. I wonder if he's going to pull from Japanese music influences or aesthetic influences. Hip-hop's fascination with Japan and Asian culture has gone back a very long time. Who can forget 36 Chambers and Shaolin, then later on the fashion tip, everybody being obsessed with Nigo. So none of that is new. And in fact, it wasn't uncommon back in the day for artists before they broke in America to go overseas. There's sort of this funny joke where someone will say, well, I'm big in Japan or I'm big overseas. You might not have heard about me here, but I'm really big over there. And I do think that the Japanese fan base, from what I've been told, is just like very welcoming. They love hip hop. So I could see Kanye feeling like over there he's celebrated, whereas here he's mostly kind of critiqued and mildly tolerated, I guess you would say. But one thing that a lot of us in the music industry have talked about is, can Kanye be canceled? Let's go back a few years. At the height of his, I guess you would say, sort of public devolving, downfall, I don't know the best word, there were a lot of people who did write Kanye off. And I would say in the fashion industry for sure, especially with his fallout from Adidas, but also in a lot of, I would say, mainstream publications, people I've spoken to at big companies, they're like, we would never hire Kanye. We would never book him. Like, we're done with him. Interestingly enough, I don't think hip hop ever abandoned Kanye. Are there some people who just will never work with him because of what he said about race, about women, his remarks about slavery? I would totally understand if someone is just no longer a fan of his, and they would have every right to feel that way. But by and large, I feel the hip hop community, and specifically like the men in hip hop, they love Kanye. I've heard either in public forums or behind the scenes, what does everyone always say? Well, he's our brother. And even though he's going something, we have to show him grace and love. And that sort of safety blanket, I think, has always been there with hip hop. And I think will always be there with hip hop. So if Kanye does want to promote this new album, let's say on a hip hop podcast or even on the radio, I think hip hop media would welcome him with open arms. I don't know if he's going to get that same love from, let's say, the mainstream, but I could see him sort of going back to his roots, so to speak, and really leaning into hip hop, because that's probably the one audience that has not fully abandoned him outside of his loyal fans, of course. Anytime someone asks me, is Kanye done? Is Kanye canceled? I always say the same thing. He's literally one hit away from making a comeback. If Kanye can give us a hit record, ideally, I'd love a solo hit record, not something where he's leaning on a bunch of features, because that is something I think he's done well in the past. But I think right now, if we are talking about something that's more significant and seismic, I think he has to do it on his own. I think that would bring him back in the good graces of a lot of people. Because as we talked about on this channel, when it comes to problematic people, especially problematic men, all you need is success and everything is forgiven. As the old saying goes, you're only as good as your last hit. So if Kanye can come out of the gate, give us a hit record that's just undeniable, I do think that people will rally around this album and support it. But I think similar to, a lot of these sort of big personalities, what Kanye has to focus on is the music. Focus on the art. Go back to the basics. I don't know what his headspace is right now. Even with this title, Bully, it's unclear to me. Is he the bully, and is he going to start taking accountability for his words and his actions, how he's treated people? A lot of these stories are coming up even behind the scenes. Is Kanye going to really take that accountability on this album, showcase vulnerability, showcase honesty, contrition? Or is he going to say, well, no, I've been bullied, and somehow the whole world turned their back against him? He's the underdog. With Ye, it can really take on one of those two things. And I think in the past, at least, he's been more in the latter camp, where he feels like he's the perpetual underdog. The industry is against him. Everyone's against him. And somehow he's fighting up and kind of punching upward. So I hope he doesn't go that route, but we have to wait and see. One thing I will say about Kanye, no matter how you feel about him, he still makes music feel special. Let's go back a few years, whether it was the Larry Hoover concert, whether it was those Donda listening sessions in the different arenas. He's someone who comes from the old school era of making everything just bigger and more extravagant, sometimes to the detriment of his budget, but that's neither here nor there. But there is something really, I guess, heartening about an artist who cares so much about their art that they're willing to go to any extent. We talk so much about artists just not caring nowadays. Everything just feels so throwaway. 1 minute it's a hit, the next minute you forgot, like, who was that artist? Like, what was that record? And this has so much to do with just the way we consume music and media and all these things. But I think Kanye is one of the few last artists, he can make his music feel special. And if he really wants to, he can make this Bully album and the subsequent rollout something that we're going to want to talk about, something that we are interested. Where's this sound? Where's that sample from? I mean, even with this cover, the fact that he shouts out the photographer, I think a lot of people probably did the Google search, like, who is this person? And now you know about this Japanese legendary street style photographer. That's something Kanye has always been really good at, this discovery. Whether it was Virgil Abloh, whether it was somebody like Riccardo Tisci, he would pull these names and make them part of the larger pop culture conversation. And I like that about him. Like, everyone would do one thing and he would pride himself in doing something different. That's what makes music interesting, and that's what makes art exciting. I guess we just got to wait and see. The Bully album, like I said, it doesn't have a release date. So we just got to wait and see when this record is going to come out. Knowing Kanye, he's probably going to drop it in some very like weird way. But I do think that one thing that has sort of hurt him, he's no longer on a major label. So his longstanding relationship with Def Jam is over, and he's sort of an independent artist now. I kind of don't like using that word independent because it does make it feel like he's this, young, plucky upstart, and he's not. He's Kanye. He's still one of the biggest artists in the world, but he's technically independent insofar as a major label. And I do think, sadly, a lot of his rollouts in the past have felt kind of a little bungled, a little bit just sort of chaotic and messy. And I wonder how much of that is just because he doesn't have the right team. He was so used to Def Jam's team handling the release, the promo, publicity, all of these things for him, and he could just focus on the art. I don't know who works at Donda right now. And from what you've seen in the past in the headlines, Kanye kind of surrounds himself with some, let's say, interesting characters. I'm going to use that adjective for now, but these aren't people who are known for, having years in the industry. They're not really experts. And anyone I know who does have expertise and has worked with Kanye, almost like they all leave. Either he fires them in sort of a fit of rage, or they just get fed up and leave. So he has a bit of a revolving door when it comes to personnel. That's not great when you're trying to put out an album, when you're trying to tell a cohesive story. And I think in his case, also trying to make a comeback. But going back to what I said earlier in this video, I don't know which major label would sign Kanye right now. Again, I don't think he's canceled, but I do feel like a lot of the powers that be, they may have to wonder, is it even worth the effort, worth sort of the hassle of having him on the label? You're not going to get his back catalog. Universal has that. So what exactly are you getting? Does it make sense to give Kanye some huge multi-million-dollar deal? And he reads the headlines. He's going to see, well, Drake got reportedly $400 million. The Weeknd got a huge deal. Taylor Swift got a huge deal. Like, what about me? He's going to probably want like $1 billion to sign to a major label. And I just don't think from an ROI perspective, or even just from like the mental hassle of dealing with him, that a lot of labels are running to go sign Kanye West. Now, if he gives us a hit record, I think all is forgiven. People quickly in the music business have amnesia, and yeah, he's fine. I will say one thing I would love to see from Kanye, free advice, I do not work on his team, I would love to see a public apology. I think he should do one sit-down interview with a serious journalist. I feel I always have to now like add that disclaimer because I don't want him sitting down with some bro podcast or some crazy conspiracy theory alt-right outlet. I think he needs to sit down with a significant, serious journalist and explain himself. Why has he said the things he said? Is he willing to take accountability? Even just saying I'm sorry, I think goes a really long way. We love a celebrity redemption story in this country. So I think if Kanye is able to show that level, just again, of somebody who has remorse, who understands he might have hurt people and why he hurt them, I think it could really benefit him, especially if he is doing this whole rebrand. All right, so let me know what you think. Are you excited for Kanye's Bully album? What does he need to do to make a comeback? Is it a hit record? Is it a big pop culture moment? Let me know in the comments what you need from Kanye.